Welcome to Junk Monkey Live. We're coming to you live from somewhere in Nebraska because I am out on the road. So tonight our special guest is Will from Reseller Madness. Brother, how are you?
Good evening, everybody. I'm doing well. I'm kind of high off of this whole FlipCon thing. Just came back from
Man,
FlipCon, and
you and I are both gluttons for punishment. You just got done with FlipCon. I'm out on the road. You've got count them, three live shows tonight.
three. It'll be a marathon, but I'm looking forward to it. All these channels are channels that I love, so I'm looking forward to each and every one of
That
these
means
shows.
mine has to be one you love. I appreciate that. Hey, let's take a minute and say hello to the people in the chat. Glenn the Swamp Picker, he stopped by earlier. He's going to try to make it tonight. Melanie Sposio, I hope I didn't butcher your name, baby, but she's going to have to catch up later because she's busy with work. Tina with the Lake Exchange is with us tonight. Coco and Chewy, they must have been a blast at the FlipCon. Tina with the Lake Exchange. Christopher Nutter, everybody's best friend, is in the house tonight. Ping, good to see you. And Mimi's Treasure is here. Good to see you, Mimi.
Hi, everybody. Glad y'all are here. Coco and Chewy were, oh my goodness, they were capturing everything on video the whole entire time at FlipCon. There was the GoPro, there was the phone, I'm sure there was other cameras around. It was just like constantly, woohoo! They got pictures with everybody.
Instagram has been blowing up, and I'm going to tell you, Coco and Chewy were front and center for just about everybody's Instagram posts.
Check out their pictures because they probably got photographs with everybody at FlipCon. I'm a little jealous, a little bit jealous of that. They caught some of the karaoke that was really fun too. What else? I mean, hey, good to see you. I see you in the chat. I'm just slow at typing and talking, so don't mind me there. Yeah, amazing experience.
Glenn is with us. Good to see you.
Welcome.
I know. Now, there's kind of been like some rumors about FlipCon and Josh.
They're all true, and they're all also false. Every single one of them.
Yeah. While you were there, did you get a chance to talk to him or Haley or Phoenix Resales about what's happening for next year?
I did. I can tell you the straight story for it. Most of it is settled, and there's a few things that are in the works. So Josh and Haley worked their butts off for FlipCon. They planned it and they replanned it, and then things didn't quite happen the way that they hoped. Like Cracker Barrel kind of didn't show up when they were supposed to and bring the food. Ooh. And so they were playing damage control on some of this stuff. Philly Flipper's here. Hey, I've seen you before too. And so there was a lot of moving parts that they were working on constantly. They spent the whole entire time super busy. They got exhausted.
I imagine so.
They got exhausted, and I would too in their place.
That must have been like trying to herd cats, keep all that stuff going just
blindfolded.
Yeah. Last year, I think they had an assistant who was helping them with all that stuff behind the scenes. Did they have any help this year?
They did. They had somebody there. I've forgotten her name. I'm terribly sorry. Maybe somebody in the chat knows it. Yeah. But they had an assistant who was the go-to person. I talked to Josh and Haley a couple times. I didn't talk to the go-to person. I don't know. Maybe I did it wrong. So it sounded like, okay, this is my impression of this now. So take this for what it's worth. It sounded like it was just more effort for something that they wanted to participate in, but they weren't excited to manage, that kind of thing. They love FlipCon. They love everything about FlipCon except planning it and executing it. So I've got a suspicion that they will continue to be associated with it in a different capacity. Okay. Again, grain of salt. That's my idea of it. However, Josh did come out and say very clearly, said FlipCon is for sale. We're not going to be managing it next year. And so by the end,
I had heard Josh say he was thinking about putting his share of it up for sale. I haven't asked. I know he's been super busy, and so
I don't know anything about.
We'll just keep our ear to the ground, and as soon as he knows something, the rest of us will.
If there's some kind of a divided ownership where there's multiple spoons?
Again, I don't know, but
I haven't heard about that.
I remember him stating it specifically that way, his share of it.
Interesting.
Phoenix Resales, I believe, was who was partnered with him last year to do it. But Josh is the face of it, so him and Haley.
I didn't hear anything said from Phoenix about owning.
I don't even know for sure he was associated with it this year. I don't know. I'm not part and parcel to their business.
Tina with the Lake Exchange says, any event is a ton of work. I coordinate as a volunteer a quilt retreat for 64 women. It's a lot of work. I believe you. I believe you. I coordinate things for my 3 children, and it's a lot of work. Oh,
I once coordinated 3 live gatherings across the nation that happened simultaneously. One in Georgia, one in Colorado, and one in Oregon.
Why?
All for the same group. Well, it was all for the same group of people, but everybody couldn't all make it to the same place. But so we created 3 events to happen simultaneous on the same weekend, that no matter where you were at in the country, you could make it to one of the 3 events. One of them
That's
was a
amazing.
great success. One of them was pretty good, and one of them was a complete flop. The one that was a complete flop, the guy who was hosting the gathering, all of a sudden at the last minute wanted to start charging people $600 a head.
Whoa.
Yeah, so that one flopped.
Oh my goodness. No kidding. Wow. What was the original price for it? What was it going to be?
It was free. Just be there. Now,
Oh
a couple
goodness.
of them were, well, all 3 of them were it was for rock gem and mineral rock hounds. And they were all at fee dig sites that are normally very cheap. But the one that wanted to charge $600 a head, he was up on top at 14,000 feet and had to have Jeeps brought in to bring people up and down the mountain. But he was part owner of the Jeep company. And what was normally $100 a person or 125 all of a sudden became 625, and people just couldn't pay it. So that one didn't work out right.
Especially last minute. You said he changed it last minute, right?
Oh yeah, it was last minute thing. It was like he was going to provide everything, to get up there and back. You had to bring your own tools, and digging tools and things like that. But yeah. So anyway, the point is, I understand how difficult it is to put together something like that. But luckily for me, you're out in the middle of the wilderness somewhere, and as long as you can get there, you can participate. Whereas if you're at a convention center and you've got caterers and that's a different story. So I can't imagine how much work that is on top of everything else he already does. I know Haley just got back from Honduras. I think it was. Wasn't it Honduras?
Sounds about right.
She was on a mission trip somewhere in South America anyway. I want to say Honduras, but somebody in the chat correct me if they know better than me. But she just got back for that.
And if anybody in the chat can put their finger on Honduras in the map, you got me beat. You win.
But it seems to me she put up a map. I watched a video, the first video she was in when she got back, and she showed on a map where they were at. And it's Western South America somewhere. It wasn't Chile, wasn't Peru. I don't know. I think it may have been Honduras. Anyway.
Let's just go with that. I like it. There's a couple people in the chat wanted to welcome Flipper Dude. Did we welcome you already? Can't coordinate my underwear.
I put his name up briefly to let him know I saw him come in, and I appreciate him.
There we go.
Yeah, Roman, the anytime picker, he's here. Happy picker.
Roman, thanks so much. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate you. Will was the best speaker at the FlipCon.
Really? That is awesome to hear.
A lot of people enjoyed
Somebody got it on video, and they're going to post that video.
Oh my goodness.
Roman has some of have you seen some of his top or best 25 or some of those lists that he's done?
Not lately. I should go check that out.
Created a buzz. It's some of his recent stuff within the last couple of weeks.
Let me go see. I want to go look at that. And we can keep on chatting while I do, but I got to see what we're talking about now. What's the top 25s about?
The top 25 YouTube resellers, I think. I don't remember the exact. Roman, drop the link to the video. You know which one we're talking about.
Oh, I was thinking Instagram. Okay.
Oh, let me check. I may not have Roman in as
It's all good. I don't want to burn too much time on Yeah, I'm gonna leave a live stream. I'll go watch a video. That's great.
Oh,
You
yeah.
guys
Well,
will love that.
as long as you know that it
Honduras.
exists.
Honduras is a good country. I bet it is. I bet it's a wonderful. There are so many countries out there that are wonderful that I've not been to. I kind of like to fix that. I've been to, I bet you've gone a lot of places, right, Rob? Because of Navy and because of
Yeah.
traveling around.
Oh, yeah.
I bet you've
South
seen some
America,
fun
not so
sights.
much. I've been to Mexico, and in the Caribbean, I've been to Cuba and Bermuda.
Cuba. I can't count the number of people I know on one hand that have, or on this many people. Guys, I'm a little tired. I'm sorry. This many people. You're the only one I know that's ever been to Cuba and come and told me about it. How was Cuba?
See, where we go in the Navy is called Guantanamo Bay, which is gained notoriety for a different reason than what I was there for. That didn't exist when I was there. We went there. We used to go there for firefighting training and to get the entire ship recertified to be firefighters and things of that nature. And that's what it was when I was there. Shortly after I left there, it was
a ship, on a vessel.
Yeah. Yeah. You bring your ship, they call it ref tray or refresher training. And you go down there and all the trainers and inspectors and test givers, and they come on board and you go out into the bay and then they run you through all these different drills and then they score you on it. And you have to pass before you can go back into active duty. I had a cousin who was stationed there. So I kind of had an in. I had a little bit more access to the base than most people do. So
very cool.
But
maybe like extra commissary rights or something, you know, you could
get I got to go places. Yeah. You know, the people that come in on the ships for the training, you're not allowed to just go out to like the E Club or the Navy base or anywhere their families might be, because the Navy guys that were stationed there had their families with them, and they didn't want a bunch of rowdy sailors running amok around the family and the kids. But shortly after I left, they got rid of, they sent all the dependents or the family home because they had the whole Haitian deal going on where all the refugees would come up to and we would help them out at Guantanamo Bay. And then when things settled down, we would send some of them home, but some of them got to come to America. And then even later after that, a few years after that, it turned into what it turned into. But back in those days, man, it was just a Navy base on one end of the island down there. And it was just, we'd go down there for training. I never saw any of the stuff that come after or took part in any of it. That just.
How cool. All right. So you went to Cuba. You were saying not so much South America. You went to Italy, you told me.
Yeah, I lived in Italy for 3 years. I was stationed in Sardinia on the north end of the island.
Mm-hmm. Did you learn
Savvy
any of that?
Thrifter is here. That's a new name for me. Good to see you.
Savvy's here. Woohoo! Yeah, Savvy's kind of new in the community. We're welcoming her with open arms.
Good to see you, a little bit smaller of a show, Savvy. I don't have all the sound effects and the crazy stuff. We don't do we just get together and hang out and talk shop. So if you got any questions, ask them in the chat and we'll try to help you out best we can. And if we can't, somebody in the chat probably can.
And
Judy Thrifting KC Style. Good to see you. She's
listening while watching.
Lists.
All right. Listening while watching. Cool.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
Oh, you don't have to call me sir. My parents were married. I was not an officer. Oh, I wonder how many people got that reference.
What was that from?
If there's any military people in the chat, they got the reference.
True story. I tried to join the Navy and they sent me away.
Health reason?
Yeah, I didn't pass their initial health screening. I answered honestly, and they said, "Yeah, no, sorry, we're not going to take you. You can go to the Navy. Excuse me, go to the Marines, go to the Army. Try them. They might take you. We're not really sure."
Yeah, well, you have to go through the intake, MEPS, and anything that you had already written down, MEPS had it. And if you'd have tried to go to any of the others, they would have got the same information that you'd already filled out.
It was kind of a weird little situation because that was 2001 and I had applied in the summertime and thought, let's just give it a try, maybe do this instead of college. And I got turned away and kind of gave me a bad taste in my mouth. I said I wanted Navy or nothing. So I'm not going to try the Army. I'm not going to try the Marines. I'll just find my own way. So I decided
the
to go to
Navy
film
has the
school
best
instead.
training for any kind of career you want after the military.
Yeah.
Or not the best training. They have a wider variety of training.
There's a lot to like about the Navy. Now, a lot to like about the others too, but for me personally, I was looking for just that. And so since they said no, I pivoted off towards film school. And then in the fall, 2001, something happened. You guys know what happened in 2001? September 11th happened. And that week, I got a call from the recruiter at the Navy. Hey, we're looking at your application again. We think we can get you in after all. I said, guys, I've already made other plans. I'm sorry. I'm going to film school. I'm doing other things. No, thanks. I know what's going on here. I know you're going to lie on my application. I'm okay.
Yeah. I was glued to my phone for the first few months after that, and then made some phone calls because the training I had was very exclusive. They only put 75 people a year through the schools that I went through, and only about 20% of us would made it through successfully. So,
wow.
Fortunately, they didn't need me, and I didn't have to go back in.
Good, man. Oh man. Fart Sack Jack is here. Hello.
Hey,
hello.
there
Variety
he is.
Flipper. Hiya.
Variety Flipper made it in. Good to see everybody tonight.
Glad you're here.
So I'm out on the road. We came to Nebraska. My mother-in-law lives here. She has a property here with 2 houses on it, and nobody to help her. And I'm like, aren't there like some teenage boys around there, some young men that need to make a few extra dollars? And there really aren't. There's some real young kids in town, but it's one of those Western towns that, it's got the old Victorian houses and up through the 20s houses. And everybody has slowly, generation after generation, moved away. Still lots of industry in the area. It's all cattle based.
So not a ghost town, just really spread out. Is that right?
Well, it's kind of spread out. It's not a huge, the farms and ranches are huge. And then there's the next town over about 20 miles away is a small college town, a little place called Shadron. But even that is really small. They've got a Walmart and that's about it. But it's one of those little towns that's just generation by generation. It's drying up. Anyway, we come out to help her. There's a laundry list of chores that she needs help with. And we got in last night late and went to bed immediately and just passed out for 2 long days of driving. And I tried to stop and do a little bit of thrifting along the way, a little sourcing, something to offset the cost of the gas to get here. Christy is here, the Texas Mom's Closet. Good to see you.
Hiya, Christy.
Now, I've had people today on Instagram saying they want to see some of my hauls. Well, folks, what you're going to have to do is just make sure you stay tuned and stay subscribed, because when I get home, I'm going to do my first ever pre-recorded reseller content video. And it's going to be all my hauls from the trip. Some good, some bad, but we'll see how it turns out, because we're going to take a different route home. On the route out here, we went north up into Washington and then cut across, and we went through Idaho, Montana, a little bit of Wyoming, and a little bit of North Dakota before we dropped into Nebraska. And on the way home, we are going to go south. We're going to go through Colorado, Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, northern Nevada, and then eastern Oregon. So big round robin trip.
Wow, that is quite a trip. Man, oh man. And is the main purpose of this for sourcing, or is this kind of sightseeing and then sourcing just comes naturally?
The trip up and through Montana and South Dakota, I've never been to either state. I've been to just about every other state in the union, but I hadn't been there.
All right.
And part of it was, part of the sourcing along the way was eventually I had hoped this year, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen this year. So maybe next year. I'm going to retire from watchmaking, semi-retire. I'm just going to move my shop to the house.
Can you even do that? Like,
yeah.
You can retire from watchmaking?
No.
I think of you as the watch guy.
Well, I'm not going to retire. I'm going to retire from public access to my
There
bench.
we go. There
So my
we
bench
go.
is going to be at home, and customers are not going to be able to come to my home. The repair shop will take jobs in for me, and the ones I want to work on, I'll work on. The ones I don't want to work on, I'll just tell them sorry. Because I'm swamped right now with probably 3 to 6 months worth of project work, stuff that parts are either impossible to get, or I'm going to have to make the parts or source other watches to rob parts out of. And I'm just swamped with that kind of work. And it's very slow, very meticulous. Hey, there we go. Chrissy is here.
How's it going, Chrissy?
Good to see you.
We missed you at FlipCon. I'm so sad
heard
that you weren't
she
there.
was not able to make it.
Now, we got Chewy, and Chewy is great. There's no problem with Chewy, but Chewy is not Chrissy. We were missing out on all the Chrissy-ness at FlipCon. Maybe next time, or maybe something else.
But part of this traveling is I want to hit a few places to see if it's worth it when I semi-retire to go on sourcing trips. Either take my little camper trailer or put a camper shell on the back of my truck and go on like a 3, 4, 5 or week-long sourcing trip and come home and then source our list. And so I'm hitting a few areas, hitting a few places, seeing how good the sourcing is there, seeing how well the thrift stores are set up. Are there any big flea markets or what do they call them? Swap meets down in California.
Come to Sacramento. I'll show you the place. I don't know how the watch scene
might take you up on that. Sacramento's only like a 5-hour drive from me.
Awesome. Yeah, if you're ever in town, we've got a massive swap meet that takes probably, if you're actually going to look at each stall, you'll spend the entire day.
Right.
After
I'll
being
run
there
and gun until something catches my eye, then I'll stop and take a closer look. But at big places anyway, big events like that. So if they put the right thing out there to catch my eye, I'll stop and see what else they have.
Yeah, it's huge. It's called Denios, Denios. I'll show you that one anytime you want.
All right.
They're a weekend swap meet. There's also one in Marysville that I hear a lot about, a lot of good things about. And then there's another one nearby, but I don't remember what they call that one. But yeah, there's lots here.
Yeah.
Who else do we have? We have Christy says she wants to travel and source. Love that. Ooh.
Yeah, there we go. Travel and source. You see, in order for me to really be worth it, I've got to get my wife and or my daughter up to speed on how to ship. Which means I need to get them up to speed on how I store my inventory. Which this year, to my credit, I did start using SKUs and lettered bins.
Good. Very good.
So, I got
do you use like number stickers for it, or you hand number them? What do you do?
The bins get a big, I take one of my Rolo printer labels and a stencil, and I put A, B, C, D, E, F for the bins. And then for my SKUs, I have a big roll of 1/2 inch by 3 inch or 2.5 inch white labels that I found at the bins. And I handwrite the number on there. And then my SKU starts with the letter of whatever bin it is in, dash, and then whatever the SKU number is. I think right now I'm up to somewhere in the neighborhood 600 for the year. I run, hey, Julian, the bearded thrifter is in the house. He just got done doing a bunch of traveling and thrifting too. He went to the 127. Julian, you did go to the 127. Am I? Yeah, he did. What am I talking about? I know he did. But
see, that's a bucket list item for me. That 127 would love to go to that.
Well, that's not the only one. They have a lot of those highway things like that. My guest from last week, Evan, he had just got back from one of those long, not the 127, it's the one the week before on a different highway where he went to one of those. And I know those aren't the only two. There's several of those, but we don't have those on the West Coast.
Never
So
seen one that
I've never.
stretches
We get
along.
yeah, we have the occasional citywide, but we don't have that I've ever heard of one of those long highways with every town doing it on the same week.
Because you're in Washington, you said?
I'm in Southern Oregon, right on the
Southern
California.
Oregon. Okay.
Yeah.
I should have known that, but I've forgotten.
You can't keep up with every detail of everybody out there. It's impossible.
It's true. I'm trying, but I'm failing delightfully well.
Failing me, you have to be doing something in order to fail.
Oh,
If you never fail, it's because you never do anything.
There you go.
I would rather fail trying to do something than never fail by doing nothing.
It's true. So you're up in Oregon, 5 hours north of me, it sounds like.
Yeah.
We don't have the big long sales either, but we have community sales. You guys get that in the area where
we have 2 towns in my area that have those, and quite honestly, I haven't been too impressed with them. When it comes to those types of sales, for me, the yard sales in my town are terrible, almost always. And the yard sale, garage sale scene is extremely competitive. There are people beating on doors at 6 o'clock in the morning, demanding to know if they have this, that, or the other.
Video games.
They look, and to me, I can't. I'm one of those people. I can't do that. If you say it starts at 8 o'clock, I'll be there at 7:30, 7:45, and sit across the street until I think you're ready for me to come in, because I'm not the one that go beat on somebody's door at 6 o'clock in the morning trying to get to the good stuff first. It's rude, and I am never rude without a reason to be rude.
100%, right with you there. You watch other people do that though. You see them banging on doors.
Yeah, I've seen them do it. And when I do get to the cell, I ask for the kind of stuff that I look for. And they're like, we had somebody at 6 o'clock this morning beating on the door asking for that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, it wasn't me. I promise.
And they sold it to them? Like they actually
most of the time,
they did business with the guys who were doing that?
Some of those guys, they do get lucky. I mean, they're running and gunning. They map it out the night before. They pull up. They leave the car running, run to the door, beat on the door, say what they got to say, ask what they got to. If they get run off, they get run off. They run to the next one.
Wow.
So
it seems like you make a lot more enemies than friends doing something like that.
Yeah. Well, they're not going into stores that they have to go back to. They're going to a yard sale, which they may never have to go back to that property. But seriously, I can't do that.
I show up about 30 minutes early usually, and sometimes that's already late and they've already bought up all the games. But I'll offer value while I'm there. Like I'll come on up and I see they're moving a heavy table. I'll say, hey, can I help you move that table?
Well,
while I'm like moving it, scoot it over and be like, hey, so I'm looking for video games too. If you guys happen to bring any out, I'd love to see them. Right. Kind of soft pedaling it, but asking, hey, you got them? I want to buy them. And sometimes they go, no, we don't have them. Other times they walk straight over to the box. Oh yeah, we got these. We're gonna move the stuff out of the way first, and then I'll bring them for you. Yeah.
I don't chase video games because that's one of the things that my area, everybody is after it,
and every area.
And a lot of the people that are after it, they're the ones beating on the door at 6 o'clock in the morning and irritating people. And a lot of times, if I do bring up video games, you can just see the look on their face, like, "Oh no, not at all." You people. So about the only thing I ask for anymore is like the old watches,
and jewelry.
Yeah, well, not the jewelry.
Not even jewelry.
I scrap most of it. I get my hands on. I don't think I've ever found a piece of designer jewelry. Occasionally, a piece of Tiffany. Like the little wishbone brooch pin or something, and that's always fun to find it, but I've never actually looked for it. But I do actively search out the old watches, and 9 times out of 10, before they'll let me finish explaining that I'm looking for the old wind-up watches, broken or not, they start handing me bags full of cheap quartz watches. I'm like, this is really not what I'm looking for. Cameron from Gravity Goods is with us tonight. Good to see you, buddy. I'm glad
you're here. And Mary's here too. Hiya, Mary.
Mary, where did I miss you, Mary? Where's Mary? Mary.
Some dude called Pickin' Preacher showed up too. Who's that guy?
Hey, Keith. Well, that's where we're headed next. My chat hasn't caught up yet. So
Roman says a lot of resellers do it. Yeah, a lot of resellers do bang on doors, but there's a lot who don't and who just wait patiently. Yeah. And I've had guys that were banging on my door at my own personal yard sales that I'm hosting. I won't do business with them. I don't, because I put in the listing, no early birds. You bang on my door, I'm going to run you off and send you out of here. And yes, I have video games, so don't do it.
Now, if I see the video games, I'll go to them and look through them because I do sell consoles and the occasional game. In fact, I've been extremely lucky, not recently, but I have found some of the high dollar games. I found a big box video game one time, PC game, big box, sold it for $500. And I found at one time it's the college football games that are worth over $100.
NCAA 14.
Yeah, there's two different ones.
I forget the other one.
But I found both of them at the same time at the bins.
Not bad. Not bad at all.
Bins. So between the two games, I guarantee you I had less than 25 cents into them. And I walked outside in the parking lot and did a draft. I'm like, I'll just take pictures and go live with it. And they were both sold for over $100 before I could get home.
Slick.
One for like 110, the other one for like 115. So I was extremely lucky there. Now the Pacific Northwest, Mary, there's Mary. Good to see you, Mary. The Pacific Northwest, my part of it is not that great. And my trip out here, my very first stop taught me just how hard sourcing is in my area. Not that I didn't know it wasn't tough, but I saw how good it can be in other places.
Chrissy, thanks for dropping all those links. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I got the heat advisory. In fact, in Medford right now, it's 108 degrees right now. This late in the day. It's 5:30 and it's still 108 degrees. I hope my daughter is keeping my little puppies well hydrated.
How warm is it here?
Elijah Dalton. That is a new name for me. Welcome. Glad to see you. Let's see. Rebel Junk. Where is my Rebel
Trying to
Junk?
catch up.
There she is. Thank you for coming in tonight. Hadn't seen you on my show in a good while. Yeah, the
early birds pay double. I like that. I like that a lot. That's funny.
I would, if they showed up at my place and I wasn't ready for it. Actually, Mrs. Monkey won't let me have yard sales. She don't want people coming up in our yard.
Oh,
but to her credit, especially she has worked extremely difficult putting in a lawn and keeping it nice. So, and we really don't have the parking for it. Although the neighbors across the street from us, they regularly have yard sales. That neighbor, she's the one that runs around and picks up all the free piles, brings it home, and then she has her own yard sale. So, and I put a lot of free stuff out. My favorite way to get rid of large items that I don't want is I put them out at the end of my driveway with a free sign on them. A golf clubs. So if you source golf clubs, sometimes you have to buy them in bulk, and sometimes you have to buy the bag and all, and just to get one or two good clubs. So you end up with all these clubs that aren't worth listing. So I put them I put all the unwanted clubs into an unwanted bag, stick them out by the road with a free sign on them. I've yet to have a bag full of those things last more than an hour. But I've recently found a really good use for them. When I clean shoes and I need to dry them, I put them over the end of the club and then lean them up against the wall of the house.
That's inventive. Great.
It keeps them off the ground so my puppies can't mess with them when they come outside.
That's inventive.
And it gets them up the sole vertical so the water doesn't just pool and set on the inside. It's able to drain out and they dry faster. And that the shaft, the grip of the club is inside the insole, so it keeps the shoe when it dries from collapsing in on itself. So it helps hold the form of the shoe.
Cool. And are those shoes that you're selling, or those are just
Yeah.
shoes for your own personal? Okay, you
No,
sell them.
so
There you go.
although I do wash my shoes and my family shoes the same way as.
So this guy goes, he sees free golf clubs on the side of the road, picks one up, goes, thing smells like feet. I don't know if I want this one.
No, it probably smells like liquid Tide and
Liquid Tide.
yeah, and well, OxyClean.
Oh man, that's good. All you guys in your 108 degrees, 107 degrees, that's nuts. It's 100 degrees right here, and I'm out in my studio with no air conditioning, so I'm sweating along with you, but not 108 degrees worth of sweat. Oh, man, oh man.
Yeah, those high temps. I spent a lot of years working in shipyards or out gem mining and prospecting in the deserts. And the older I get, the less I can handle the heat. It's not that I can't handle it; it's I don't want to handle it. It's tough. Now down south, East Texas, Southeast Texas, where I'm from, where it's called the Golden Triangle. It's the Houston, Beaumont, Orange, Texas area.
Okay.
It's right on the border of Louisiana. So that little corner of Texas is where I'm from. It's one of the few places on the globe where it can be 108 to 113 degrees. 96% humidity, not a cloud to be seen nor a breeze to be felt.
Rough.
So it's just miserable. The air is just heavy and wet. It's hard to breathe, and you walk outside and you're instantly drenched in sweat, but it doesn't help because it can't evaporate in that high humidity. Yeah, and then you add the bugs and the mosquitoes, and it's oh
man. It sounds like a great advertisement for the real estate there. Come on down. This is a great area to live in. You just make sure you never go outside.
Now, people tell me it's the same in Florida, but I've been to Florida. My dad lived in Florida. Brad is here. Good to see you. The reason Florida is nowhere near as bad is because they get those offshore breezes. And most years you can almost set your watch by the 2 o'clock monsoons that come through. A little rain cloud comes through and cools things down, and you get those offshore breezes to help. Yeah, it gets hot down there and it's very humid, but you get those breezes and those rainstorms. You get down in Texas and you don't get those offshore breezes. In fact, late summer, if you've got an offshore breeze coming on from the Gulf, that means there's a hurricane on the way. So it's not a good thing.
Man, oh man. I'm trying to think. Never been in a hurricane. Any of you guys been in a hurricane in any of those areas?
I've been through a bunch of them.
Have you really? What's it like?
A lot of wind, a lot of rain. Where I'm from, the most damage is done by the tornadoes that they spawn off. So the hurricane comes in, and there's just all these big, huge gusts of wind, and it spawns tornadoes, and they just go crazy. Katrina happened just east of me, but we got a lot of the rain from it. And then we started helping everybody with Katrina. What a lot of people don't know is that a bigger, more destructive hurricane hit a week later called Rita.
Bigger than Katrina.
It was bigger than when Katrina hit, it immediately downgraded. It hit as a 4, and as soon as it got over land, it downgraded to a 3.
Okay.
All that damage you saw on every newscast there was one small area. I think it was called the 9th Ward, where the levee broke and all those houses got flooded. They kept showing you the same small neighborhood from different angles, making it look like the entire city was done that way. But it wasn't. Well, anyway, a week later when Rita hit, it hit, and I took a direct hit from it. And Jasper, Texas, or I lived just west of there, about 15 miles west of there. And when the eye of the storm was setting over the top of Jasper, Texas, well over 100 miles inland, it was still a Category 5. And there's never been a 6 on record. So it was much bigger, did more damage, and was stronger storm than Katrina was, but we just didn't get the news coverage.
I wonder why that was. That's curious.
Well, at the time, George Bush was still president, and the media didn't like him, so the media kind of blackballed Texas over it.
Wow.
So, but where we were at, it's all a bunch of country people, and we all have chainsaws and 4-wheelers and boats. so we just got out there and cleaned it up ourselves and did it ourselves. And my house was without power for 28 days straight.
Whew. Oh my
And
goodness. And you had a
what happened,
generator then, so you could run
we
things
did,
like your refrigerator, and that way
yeah,
your food didn't all
yeah, we
spoil, stuff
did
like that.
have a generator, which was a big help because the one that hit us the year before, we had a small, cheap generator that it lasted about 3 days. And after that third day, it conked out, and we had to
Harbor
cook that.
Freight, Harbor Freight generator.
Very similar type. It was a place down. It was Tractor Supply, which their
Okay.
tools are on the same par as Harbor Freight.
TSC.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness. Okay.
all those
I
places
didn't
that
know
are
that.
like ranch supply places that also sell clothing. Most of those places, the stuff they're selling is right on par with Harbor Freight. Nothing
Mm.
wrong with it to get you by, but the quality is really not there.
Mm. In the chat, I want to catch up a little bit here. Mary was saying went through the inauguration day storm of 92 in the Pacific Northwest, lost over 20 trees in 1 acre, and 3 fell on your house. Whoa, that's nuts.
Yeah.
That's craziness. Phew. Brett
Yeah.
says, how about poor Maui? Maui, and they had little fires that started, and because of the hurricane force winds, apparently it just took over the island.
Yeah, it turned it into a blast furnace type thing. It was as a true wildfire.
And that's right where we were last year when we went to Maui. That was our very first time we'd ever been to Hawaii. We went to Maui, and those were the places we went to see. It's all burnt down now.
Yeah. When Rita hit us, a 70-foot white oak tree went right through. I had an outbuilding set up as my watch repair shop, and it went right through the middle of that shop and ruined everything. So I had to start completely over from scratch in 2005 after that happened.
Whoa. All your inventory, all your tools,
everything.
all that.
I had a couple of boxes of tools that were in waterproof boxes, or so I thought, that I thought had survived.
From TSC?
Yeah. Well, they were just the plastic bins with the double hinged fold over lids. And they seemed dry. I didn't see any standing water in them, so I just set them to the side. And by the time I got into them, I didn't realize how much moisture had got in there. And just the most expensive tool I owned was my lathe that I make parts on, and that's a very specialized lathe, and they don't make them anymore. So you have to source them used. And the bad part about that is if you're sourcing it online, you have no way to test it. The vast majority of them have been used by people for purposes other than making watch parts, and they ruin them. Or they're just flat worn out, or they're put together out of mismatched parts from different machines. And these machines are each set up one at a time by hands, and they're matched, like the tailstock and the headstock are perfectly aligned. So if you have to, use your centering chuck and turn a part and then take the part out and turn it around, you can recenter it and it's perfect. And you have concentricity from one end of your part to the other. And I'm using my hands explaining parts, but these parts are so small, you have to lick your finger to actually pick them up or use a pair of tweezers.
Wow.
So, and it's,
man.
Who
makes tools for that small of work? Because I'm familiar with some of the big names.
Well, there used to be a lot of companies back in the 60s and earlier. But during the 60s, we had a little thing called the quartz crisis. The Hamilton Watch Factory in America come up with quartz technology, what we call quartz battery-operated watches. Well, they took it to Basel, which is in Sweden, which is the yearly world convention of watchmakers. They come in and they show what's new, what everybody's doing, and everybody except one company laughed at Hamilton for making a battery-operated cheap watch.
Really?
Except one company, and the one company was Seiko, and they bought the quartz technology, renamed it Pulsar. And then they perfected the technology, and they started pumping out cheap quartz watches. And then every other company in the world tried to jump on the same bandwagon. So now you take all these very technical, very difficult to make watches and very expensive to make watches and replace them with something that you can pump out tons, literally metric tons worth of making watches that are more accurate and so cheap to make that if they break, you don't even fix them. You throw them away and grab another one. So high-end watches and watches in general really suffered from this so-called quartz crisis. It's only been in recent
the tools
years
needed to make those weren't really needed as much anymore. They became, instead of a widespread thing, it was now a very niche specialty, right?
Not only that, the people who use them were no longer needed.
Oh.
So quartz watches destroyed an entire industry from one end of that industry to the other. Very few watch companies survived it.
Wow.
And very few watchmakers survived it. And it's only been in the last 20 years or so that watchmaking has made a comeback. But it's only at the upper echelon tier of it. So you have to be able to work on the extremely expensive watches and then you have to be certified to do even that, to make a go at it. And there still aren't enough of us around for companies to start making the tools again.
Oh,
there's a few, but they're extremely, I mean, like my little lathe, if I had to buy a brand spanking new one that was manufactured this year, you know, that machine would probably cost me $250,000 to $300,000. And
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, you're talking a lathe that's 12 inches long that costs as much or more than a professional machine shop lathe.
I spent a summer in a machine shop, and the manual lathe they had there scared me to death. Holy moly. Apparently, fear of those things is somewhat beneficial to a certain point. I used it just a couple of times. Mostly spent my time on mills. So when you're talking about these, I can visualize them.
A mill is just a vertical lathe.
The table that's calibrated to move exactly in all three of the axes. But the precision that's needed for the type of work you're talking about must be something that's just really hard to get.
It really is. And a lot of time it's you get the basic shape down, and then it's polishing until it comes into tolerances. And then it's a go no go type thing. You have the if you're making a pivot on something, you turn it, and then you get close, and then you start burnishing and polishing, and then you have the jewel or the bushing that it goes into, and you just keep fitting it until it fits right. That Flipper dude's been after the Swatch watches. Yes, Swatch watches are one of those watches that has a huge collectible following. Look up the Rabbit, the Bunny Sutra Swatch watch. I have one of those. It's they're kind of funny. They're a little risque, but they're one of the ones that everybody looks for.
I found only one, and apparently it just wasn't a valuable one of the Swatch watches.
Here's the thing about those little cheap plastic Swatch watches. That company Swatch made so many of those watches, and they were so popular that they made enough money to buy out the vast majority of the Swiss watchmaking industry.
They did.
Most of the big names that people recognize in watchmaking, like Omega, Longines, there's a whole list of these high-end watch brands, not a Rolex, but just about every other high-end watch brand that people recognize, Swatch owns them.
Wow.
And then they own the companies that make all the parts that all the other companies use. So that's been something else too. So not only is it hard for me to get the tools, this company Swatch, they decided that they were going to stop supplying parts to anybody. So all these watches for the last 40, 50, 60 years that have parts in them that were made by one company that they bought, if the companies that refuse to sell their name to them, they no longer are able to get parts. So new companies had to be created to make parts for these companies, or these companies had to start making their own parts because Swatch shut down the parts supply. And the reselling rider is in
crazy.
So yeah, the watchmaking world is a crazy world. There's a lot of history. For instance, you've heard of Eli, the cotton gin guy.
Eli Whitney.
Eli Whitney.
Yes.
What made him famous about the cotton gin was interchangeable parts. He didn't come up with in those parts. The American, he came up with a design that you could make similar parts and then fit them, but he didn't. What he really was famous for is the cotton gin was a secret piece of equipment. He went and viewed one. He had a photographic memory. He came back to America and he built his own cotton gin. And because he built them all very similar, he could make blank parts. And if you needed a part for it, he'd send it to you and then you could fit that part to it. But true interchangeable parts for machinery didn't come around until 1857 when the National Watch Company, or the American Watch Company out of Waltham, Massachusetts, did it.
Wow. I had no idea. I'd forgotten about that with Eli Whitney.
Yeah.
Did he make other machines besides just the cotton gin, or
Oh no, he was into everything. He even had his own firearms company. Some of the earliest repeating rifles were made by Eli Whitney and his company.
Really? Oh my goodness.
Henry Ford was famous for what?
The assembly line.
The assembly line. Same watch company.
Which
American Watch Company,
existed, if I remember.
Company. 1857. In 1857, the American Watch Company out of Waltham, Massachusetts had assembly lines. If you worked for them in their factory, you had one job. You sat at this desk and you made this part to fit the part that the guy one step down from you made. And then there's another guy in the other direction that was making a part to fit what you just made. So that was cool. So everything that all these industrial revolutionists are accredited for, they learned it from watchmakers.
I had no idea it was that influential. That's really cool.
Yeah.
The Waltham Watch Company, you said.
Wow. The automatic screw machine, having screws that were all exactly the same, was made by a watchmaker by the name of Charles E. Word. He worked for Waltham.
Smart bunch of fellows. Some
of those screw machines that he made back then are still in use to this day, making screws. And the only thing they've done is to retrofit them is to add an electric motor to them. So you feed wire into one end of this machine and it spits out finished screws on the other end of it.
Okay, how were they powered before electricity?
They would have been powered by a big belt, and it was
hamsters on the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah, there would be a big shaft in the ceiling, and you would run your belt up to it and hook your machine to it, and you'd run your machine. And then the next guy down, he may have a different machine, but it's run on the same shaft above his head. He'd run a belt up to that, and he'd work his machine.
So it's all overhead. Nice.
Yes. So, and it was all either water powered or wind powered or steam powered.
Oh, now we're heading into watches and steam. I'm thinking steampunk stuff.
Yeah. And steampunk is the art form. The most commonly used parts for steampunk art jewelry are watch parts.
Watch parts. Definitely watch parts. How do you feel about that? Does it strike you the same way?
Feelings. I love the artwork.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of times when I'm looking at this the steampunk art jewelry, I can spot parts of very rare and expensive watches that were broken down to make this novelty jewelry. It's very novel.
For real.
It's very cool. But they may make a piece and it may sell for $50, $100, couple $100. But I'll see a part of a watch that if I had been able to get to it before they blew it apart and was able to refurbish it, I could have sold it for thousands of dollars.
Oh.
So when I look at a piece and I spot those parts, it breaks my heart. I can appreciate the artwork, but when I see parts from a 1870s Patek Philippe pocket watch, or a Hamilton 505, or like a railroad watch, or any of that, I see those parts in there and I'm like, oh Lord. I can't tell you how many steampunk artists I've talked to. It's like, look, when you find these watches, please don't blow them apart. Send them to me. I will take them apart for you, plus give you even more in trade for any one watch that you find that I would like to have, or buy it from you and still supply you with parts. And every one of them I talk to, they get very excited about it. And I've never had one of them contact me to carry through with a deal like that.
Bummer.
Yeah, the people who design, workflow is a art form and a genius level career in and of itself. Workflow is exceedingly important, and the logistics to back it up. Not only the workflow, but you have to have the right material come in at the right time. If you have too much of a material show up that you don't need yet, it's in your way.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it doesn't show up on time, you've got the entire assembly line waiting for you to make the part so they can make their part. So, setting that up and designing it, there are people out there who that's all they do is set those things up.
Yeah, we're starting to talk like Lean and Six Sigma at this point, which I have a bit of a manufacturing background.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like the Bible that they would follow was Lean and Six Sigma processes. And that influenced actually a lot of the way I've structured my processes here. I might imagine it's similar for you, actually, the way that you've got your watchmaking set up.
And not only that,
trying to eliminate waste in all the different areas, right?
Yeah.
And you
not only that, it's important for any business, but for us resellers, I see it all the time in these death piles. I'm like, you need to build a process, have an intake area, and next thing down the line, have a test and clean area. Next thing down the line, you need to have a photography area. At the end of that line, you need to have your computer set up. Bring the stuff in. You have one area. You're going to have to discipline yourself. Don't overflow that area. Get it in. Start cleaning and testing. Start taking pictures, start drafting, start finishing. And when on the other side of your computer, you need to have your inventory system. So it's a workflow. If you can get that workflow and you can keep yourself disciplined to using it, you won't get overwhelmed by your death pile. I say that, and I just took half of my death pile to the dump a couple of weeks ago. So some of it wasn't death pile that I was overwhelmed with. Some of it was like the industrial restaurant style coffee makers. I got one in, I got it ready, I got it listed, had it listed for a year. Meanwhile, I'd already picked up a couple more. But the shipping on something like that just made it impossible to sell on eBay.
Yeah.
And I don't like doing Facebook Marketplace local sales. I really don't. So eventually this stuff's taking up room. It's in my area. It's overwhelming me. I don't like having stuff like that over my shoulders. So the cure for me, I back my truck up to my area. Anything that is unsellable or needs to go away goes in the truck and I get rid of it. That clears my plate, clears my mind, takes the weight off my shoulder, and I'm able to continue working.
Good.
There's Keith.
He's here.
He is here. I knew he'd show up.
Mary caught me sneaking a fry. Elijah's now hungry for my fries. Elijah, you can come hang out with me. Have my fries if you want.
I had some blueberry yogurt and a fold over ham sandwich just before the show started. I've been working all day. I stopped working. I didn't get done working. I just stopped working long enough to come do this show.
Nice little break. Hopefully it's a good mental break too. Guys in the chat, give me a thumbs up if it's okay to eat on the stream. Give me a thumbs down if you want me to put my food over there and stop looking at it. Oh man. What else? What are we saying here?
Come on, people. Let's see those thumbs up and downs. Rob, if you don't mind seeing people eat, give us the thumbs up. And if it freaks you out a little bit or you don't like it, give us the thumbs down.
Need to go through my death pile and clear out some stuff. Don't we all? Here's the thing. Sometimes the values change in your death pile. So that thing that was worth picking up 6 months ago, not so much right now. Maybe it was a bathing suit and summer's almost over. Things like that. You're better letting it go instead of holding it a whole nother year till the value comes back.
Brother, I'm seeing nothing but thumbs up. People don't mind. Go ahead and have your snack.
You guys are all awesome. I appreciate you. Okay.
You're a busy man, especially today. You need to fuel up. That looks like my kind of burgers there. I buy it.
And I keep drinking the ice water because this is my lifeline right here. It's about 1 trillion degrees in the.
I normally have this huge, like 40-ounce glass of ice water when I'm at home, and I'm missing it right now. I'm not a big talker. But if you get me talking about watches, I can rattle on for hours.
I'm
And
loving it, dude. I'm loving it. I could listen to watches for hours.
This is a reseller area, and I kind of like, I have to, every once in a while, I have to rope myself in and somehow steer this big boat back around to the reselling part of it.
Right here. Mrs. Madness brought in me a cup just full of ice. She knows me. So reselling, you said you were going to source your way through the states. Did you get to do any of that yet? Did you pick up anything yet, or was this beeline straight to mama?
I've picked up a few things. I haven't hit any home runs yet. I did hit a minor home run. I picked up a $40 to $50 item, and I paid less than $3 for it. And it's something that's every time I walk past that section of a thrift store, I scan to see if one is there.
Beanie Babies.
I'll let this one little cat out of the bag. The rest of these items, you folks are going to have to come see the pre-recorded that I'm going to make when I get home.
The suspense.
The suspense. You're going to have to come see what I can find in 2 weeks of running and gunning. If we're in a town and they have a Goodwill, or a thrift store of any kind that I can find easy on and off access from the interstate or whatever highway I'm on. I'm going to run in, see whatever I can find, and run back out, get back on the road. Now, I'm not going through these places with a fine-tooth comb like I normally would. I'm just running and gunning. So the best item that I have found so far is a keyboard.
A keyboard? Musical or computer?
Computer keyboard. It is a wired ergonomical Microsoft. I think it's a 4000 version 1.0. So it's an old school ergonomic keyboard.
Clicky type?
Clicky type.
Good.
They don't always have to be clicky type, as long as they're Microsoft or Apple and they're wired.
Okay.
The non-wired ones, the dongle ones, they are always missing the dongle. And the Bluetooth ones, the clicky ones are actually fake clicky. And
when they're wireless?
The Bluetooth wireless ergonomics, they don't work very good, and there's no resale value for whatever reason. People don't like them, but the wired ones, people like the wired ones. And I've probably sold 4 or 5 of them this year, and I always get between $40 and $50 for them.
Is it the USB ones or the PS2, the older round connector?
No, it's the USB ones. However, if you find the ones with the round connector, some people still like their old computers, and they occasionally need the keyboard to replace it.
Yeah, I know people that do vintage computers, and that's the PS2 connector is what you need for the old stuff. They didn't have USB for the kind of stuff the vintage computer collectors like to pick up. So absolutely. And they're big in the mechanical keyboards, the clicky type ones.
Yeah, the true mechanicals, not the fake. This one, for instance, this is a Bluetooth clicky, but it's not a true mechanical. It was actually a Christmas present for my wife, and it comes with a paired Bluetooth mouse.
That's cool.
And I don't need it. I could use the keyboard and stuff on my laptop. I just don't like using the keyboard and the mouse pad on my keyboards or my laptops.
Savvy thrifty of that cheesesteak. Coming from Philadelphia, I love the cheesesteaks.
Oh, I was stationed in Philadelphia for some schooling, and you walk out of the base, go past the park, the overpass, and then just underneath the overpass or just out of it, there was a little sandwich shop right there that only had a window. You couldn't go inside, but the best cheesesteaks in town were right there. And that's been 30 plus years ago. So I don't know if it's still there or not, but those little places like that.
The ones in Center City, Philly, there's 2 places. There's Pat's and Gino's that are considered the cheesesteak, the definitive Philly cheesesteak places. And they both serve it with Cheese Whiz.
Yes.
Not provolone, not American, not cheddar, not a blend of any. It's cheese.
You don't get a bunch of you don't get a bunch of vegetables in it too. It's the meat, sometimes the onions, and the cheese on the bun. Good to go.
They got a sign up here that says, this is how you order it. And you order it wrong, we'll send you to the back of the line.
That's right.
I didn't see anybody get sent, but I believe them. I believe they'd send you away.
Oh, yeah. That's the way they are. Because, man, they're churning and burning, man. For like 3-4 hours, they're making these sandwiches and handing them out and getting paid as fast as they can. If you're
Super
standing there
fast.
wasting their time, they'll send you to the back of the line.
Talk about assembly line. We can bring
Yeah.
that right back to the whole manufacturing process of thing. Yeah, they are manufacturing sandwiches there, and they have one heck of an assembly line. There's one serving it right at the counter. There's one that's doing just the steak. There's the one doing the cheese. Blah. You got the ones doing the onions. Sometimes.
You know, all the traveling, I've been traveling my entire life. And my most favorite thing to do always is to find the good local food, not the tourist spot either. I want the mom and pop shop. I want the hole in the wall, little ratty looking place. Because in Texas, the best barbecue is always the old ramshackle corrugated tin buildings off on some back road in some dusty little town. The best barbecue will always be found there. The best Mexican food always comes off a truck. The best Philly cheesesteaks always out of those little shops.
The little mom and pop shops. I like those too. I really do.
Places.
Don't tell Pat's and Gino's, but I like the provolone. I really do.
Yeah, I like the provolone too, but those Philly cheesesteaks, man, the old school ones, you just, man, sometimes that just hits the spot. I don't like all the vegetables. Some onions, okay, but when they start chopping in the bell peppers and all of that, I don't want all that stuff. I want the meat, I want the cheese, I want the bun.
And a little oil in the bun.
Yeah, a little oil on the bun. When I was in the Navy, when you're in the Navy and you pull into a port, there's always this place that we would call back in those days the gut. It's like the red light dish. It's the place where everybody goes to party, to drink, and everything that goes with that. I had a group of friends when we would hit port, we would go find that mom and pop restaurant, and we would have a really good sit down meal at one of these mom and pop restaurants. Then we'd go to the gut and get stupid.
Oh man. Let's catch up on some chat. What do you say? Colin's on the move, had some toast today. Will, I'm waiting for you to start recording the vocals. What am I going to record vocals for? They unsuccessfully tried to get me to do karaoke at FlipCon. I refused. There was no way.
I heard that the karaoke went over great.
It was great because I didn't sing. Things would not have gone as well if they had gotten me on stage. But Coco and Chewy, they were up there. I think Chewy was up there. I'm pretty sure he was. Josh spent a lot of time up there. He was singing Disney songs. We had, who else was up there? Adam Baldy Pal jumped up there a bunch of times, sang some country music. Drew Strickland a little bit. Rachel was up there too. It was fun. So what am I going to record vocals for? I don't know. I don't think so, guys. I know 3 notes, do, re, and mi flat, and you can't make a lot of songs out of those.
I have one of those voices that when it works, it works.
Yeah.
But when it doesn't work, it's terrible. And I have no control over whether or not it's going to work.
I'm imagining a little like Blake Sheldon maybe, or Josh Turner.
Little now. But I can also,
I think it could work.
Some old school Southern rock. I could get down on some of that too. But
yeah,
sometimes the voice just doesn't work. And like I said, I'm not a trained vocalist or singer or anything. I used to play guitar. Then in my young days, I was in a couple of garage bands. But
fun. I want to know, when you're driving from one place to another, maybe you're heading somewhere to Source. The song comes on the radio and you sing in your car, in your truck. What?
Nope, don't drive. I don't listen to the music. It's something I picked up from my grandfather. When he was teaching me to drive his 63 Ford truck, 3 on the tree, I turned the radio on, and that's the first time he ever cussed me out.
Wow. And no distractions, huh?
No distractions when you're driving, unless you need them to stay awake. And if you need the radio to stay awake, it's time to find a place to pull over.
Man, oh man. Okay, so where do you listen
Tennessee Whiskey is one of my good ones, Mary.
I was going to ask.
And I can sing both versions of it.
Yeah.
The original and the new. And no, I'm not doing it tonight. I don't have any musical background, and I don't sing a cappella.
I don't have any music to play.
Yeah, not doing it. Nope. But yeah, the original version of that was put out by he's not a very well-liked musician, except for some very special kind of people that are huge fans of his. And I'm trying to remember. Now he's got a couple of songs that everybody likes, but I can't believe for the life of me that I can't remember his name. He's the guy that sings "You Never Even Call Me by My Name," and he's got one of those triple names. All right, somebody in the chat, let me know who it was. The original artist for Tennessee Whiskey.
Tennessee Whiskey.
He also sang. We're waiting. He also sang "You Never Even Call Me by My Name." What was his name? I know
you got me. You got me. Mrs. Madness is the one that listens to the country music, and I don't. I'm sorry. I'm more of a kind of independent.
David Allen Coe. That's who it was.
Ah.
I had to look it up. David Allen Coe. He has some very, very controversial music out there. There it is. Chrissy can come up with it for us. But yeah, David Allen Coe.
David Allen.
He sang the original version, and it's of Tennessee Whiskey, and it doesn't sound anywhere near what the modern version of it sounds like. And the modern version, I hate to say it, in my opinion, is so much better. Nope, not George Jones, Mary. I knew George. I'm from the same area as George, and he had a place called Jones Country just up the road from me, and I used to go up there on the weekends. Well, I'm from a little town called Honey Island, Texas, and we had some real old school beer joints in those days. And he would come down to those beer joints. And
when you say old school beer joints, how's that different
I'm
from
talking
say a modern one?
Sawdust on the floor. Yeah, sawdust on the floor. One old jukebox that barely worked, and there was.
You put the coins in, right?
Yeah. And there was no such thing as a weekend where somebody wasn't going to fight, or usually a bunch of somebody's. And I was still a teenager in those days. So when the cops would show up, they would hide me in the girls' bathroom until they left.
Oh, my goodness.
But yeah, I knew George Jones. I've met him many times. And when he had Jones Country, I used to go up there. It was in Zavala, Texas, which was right up the road from Honey Island, not too far. And we'd go up there. I got to meet a lot of the old school country people.
How cool is that?
But yeah, he used to come down to Honey Island all the time because a lot of the other bars banned him from coming in.
Guys in the chat, if you guys have a favorite country singer, tell us in the chat. He got banned, you're saying?
Oh, he got banned from a lot of bars. There was a story going around that everybody thinks is an urban myth about his wife took his car keys from him to keep him from going to the liquor store.
Yeah.
He got on his lawnmower, his John Deere lawnmower, and drove his lawnmower to the liquor store to get more booze. He got pulled over on the way home, driving DUI on a lawnmower.
Oh my goodness. And it's true.
Happened.
It's actually true. Wow. Oh, that's crazy. My dad dated one of the sisters from Heart, says Mary. Whoa. Man.
Now, a lot of those old school singers. Yeah, Randy Travis is a good one. He's another old school singer.
Randy Travis. George Strait. I flipped a couple of CDs from George Strait.
Yeah. I never got to meet George Strait, but I've been on his tour bus. Local guy in Jasper, Texas bought one of his tour buses after he's more or less retired from touring.
Wow.
Garth Brooks puts on a heck of a show.
You said tour bus, and all I can think of is how much inventory I could put in a tour bus.
You know, I often think about that. You see these people that are out living the RV life and paying for it by reselling. I don't understand how the shipping works.
Thrift to travel reminds me when you say that. I was thinking thrift to travel.
Yeah, thrift to travel, and there's Traveling Salvation, and a couple of others. But they do that. They live in a motorhome or an RV or a trailer, and they travel from place to place. They thrift, and I don't understand how the shipping works.
Because I have to have flat rate mailers. You put them on the roof.
Flat rates. It had to be. It would almost have to be flat rates, but you still have to have a return address in case people want to return something, because you're going to get returns, whether you accept them or not. eBay forces you to take returns. So where does somebody send you? I mean, you have to have a home base somewhere.
Mom and dad's house or PO box or something. You could just, I'm sure they've got somewhere. But yeah, I don't know. Never asked. At FlipCon, a number of the guys were doing Whatnot lives there, and they had flown in or they had driven like, 5 states over to get to FlipCon, and they went to the Goodwill bin store, and a couple of the guys bought pallets, and they were doing live Whatnots, just
right there on
auctioning
the
off
spot,
all the items on the spot. And they were laughing about how difficult shipping was going to be. And I watched one of the guys pushing one of the luggage carts out of the hotel, just piled high with boxes. He had gone to Walmart and to the post office. He picked up his flat rates and he picked up his boxes from Walmart, just packaged everything up, sent it on out at the local post office. So you can do it from wherever.
Yeah. I mean, if if you're using a flat rate box, that's understandable.
Mm-hmm.
But I got a lot of stuff that I thrift that just, shoes don't fit. Most shoes don't fit in a flat rate. And the flat rates that they do fit into are not cost worthy. They don't, the cost of that shipping, is $16 to $18 now for a large flat rate.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little too much shipping for a pair of shoes, because most shoes I ship for $13 or less. Occasionally for like the 3 and 4 pound boots or heavy canvas shoes, hiking shoes, it's $14.99 to ship those.
Yeah.
So large flat rate is close to $20, and you'd only be able to sell black boots. You wouldn't be able to sell $29, $35, $30 to $35 athletic shoes and charge $20 for shipping. It just wouldn't work.
Yeah, not profitably.
So so traveling and reselling at the same time, you'd have to have sourcing would be a little more difficult, because you'd have to only source things that were profitable enough to ship in flat rates and would fit in flat rates.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it would be
that's
a
the only way I
challenge.
can. Yeah.
Maybe people like the challenge for that. I don't know.
I guess, but
I'd be interested in maybe going and watching.
Item and it's only $3, I'm getting it, and I've done that multiple times, but if it doesn't fit, like VCRs and combo units, you got to have either a 16 or an 18 by 12 by 6 box to ship those. They don't make a flat rate that big. So if you run into one of those, DVD recorder combo units, those things could sell upwards of $200, and you find one for $5 or $10, it would suck to have to leave that behind.
If you feel like testing it to make sure that it works all the way, they require a bit of an involved testing phase. But yeah, absolutely, there's profit in it if you don't
never take. If they will play DVDs and play VHS, I've never had a problem with them. I've never had one returned, and I've sold a lot of them. I've probably sold 12 or 13 of them in the last year.
Oh, awesome.
Although in the last 6 months, though, even VCRs have been hard for me to find. I find a lot of VCRs, but they're like the Quasars or the RCAs, and they're really beat up, or they don't pass. And I test them at the store. If I can't test them at the store, I leave them.
Good call.
Well, it kind of sucks, even in my home base in Medford, a lot of them have stopped putting the VHS tapes out. So if I can't test it, but the good thing is they give me a 7-day return period on them.
Oh,
so inside of a week, I can run back to that one and return it. And I can return anything I buy in the Valley. I can return it to any store in the Valley. So that makes it a little bit more worthwhile.
For sure. Yeah, I like having that assurance that if it doesn't work, you get your money back. $5 or $10. I wouldn't make a return trip just to that store just to get my $5 or $10 back. But if you're already going to go to the next one, then
I always get the store credit. One thing I'm going to add to, I bought one. I found one. I either bought it at a Goodwill or I found it at the bids, but I want to get a power inverter for my truck and keep a couple of VHS and DVDs in there so I can go out to the truck and test it. And if
There
it don't
you
work,
go.
I can run it right back in, or I can trade it in at the next one down the line. Because when I do a full day of sourcing, I have 4 retail stores and 1 Ben's location that I will hit in a full day.
That's a good sourcing trip. That's a nice little circuit you can do, and you can probably spend most of the day doing it if you want, or you can probably make it much shorter with something like that.
Yeah. Let's see that. I start on one end and I just make a bit. I like round robins. I like being able to go out and make a loop. I don't like the back and forth thing. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 cities, but they're all fairly close.
Good. Very good.
And let's see.
So I'm starting to come up on time here.
I was just about to
6:20.
mention that. So somebody drop a link to the Keith the Prickin' Preachers. I cannot speak, and that is the second time I have made that faux pas saying his name. The Picking Preacher Keith is going live with Will immediately after this show. So what we're going to do is we're all going to go over there and talk to Will some more over there. So
we're going to have dinner with Keith.
Link and drop it in my chat. He's going to take 5 minutes or so to eat his hamburgers, and then we're going to see him again over at Keith's channel. And he's probably going to have some choice words for me mispronouncing his name for a second time in a row.
He's right there. He's right there.
There he is.
Oh, my goodness.
I am so sorry, brother. That is the second time. That's a tongue twister of a name, though. And when you have a mind that works like mine, I'm an old sailor, so. Let me switch over. Keith, I'm going to see if you've got a wrench. If not, I'm going to give you one right now. You do not. So let me give you a wrench. Come on. That thing is right in.
Keith, the what? Says Anthony. Oh, my goodness. Night, Chrissy. You have a good one.
All right, Keith, I am trying to click on this thing, but maybe now.
In the meantime,
that little thing with the emojis keeps popping up and blocking me. There we go. Add as a moderator. There you go, Keith. You now have a wrench.
You got upgraded. We're saving face by doing that. Okay, Keith? Oh,
and now I got to find my way back. There I am. All right, Keith, you have a wrench now. Drop your link in the chat because I'm inviting everybody here. Well, Chrissy already beat me to the punch. Somebody should have spoke up. But anyway, we're good to go.
Thanks,
and
Chrissy.
I want as many of you that have the time, come join Will and Keith over on Keith the Picking Preacher on his channel. And we're going to have some more fun with Will.
Let's keep this party going, guys.
I promise I'll try to get it right next time.
Oh, my goodness. That's awesome. Hey, thanks so much for having me on here. This was a blast.
Brother, I'm so happy you came on. And with all the traveling you just did and all these shows you got done, I'm very appreciative that you took the time to still do this show with me.
Wouldn't miss it for the world. All right.
I appreciate it. And everybody in the chat, thank you so much. And I'll turn it over to you now for the goodbyes.
Bye, everybody. Y'all have a good one.
All right. That's it. We'll see y'all over at Keith's.